Day 1. God called the light day and the darkness night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Day 2. The sky and the sea. God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Day 3. Land and vegetation. God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the fruit tree, and also any fruit of his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth," and it was so. Day 4. The stars, the sun, and the moon. God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Day 5. Sea creatures and birds. God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven." Day 6. Animals and humans. God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind." And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that crept upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the earth, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that crept upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created him. Male and female created he them. Day 7. God had rested on the seventh day because he finished his work which he had made, and rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. The doctrine of the fall of man is extrapolated from Christian Exodus of Genesis 3. According to the narrative, God creates Adam and Eve, the first man and woman. God places them in the Garden of Eden and forbids them to eat fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And serpent tempts Eve to eat fruit from the forbidden tree, which she shares with Adam, and they immediately become ashamed of their nakedness. Subsequently, God banishes Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, condemns Adam to working in order to get what he needs to live, and condemns Eve to giving birth in pain, and places cherubim to guard the entrance, so that Adam and Eve will not eat from the tree of life. The book of Jubilees gives time frames for the events that led to the fall of man by stating that serpent convinced Eve to eat the fruit on the 17th day of the second month in the 8th year after Adam's creation. It also states that they were removed from the garden on the new moon of the fourth month of that year. Adam and Eve, in the Judeo-Christian and Islamic traditions, the original human couple, parents of the human race. In the Bible, there are two accounts of their creation. God, on the sixth day of creation, created all the living creatures, and in his own image, man, both male and female. God then blessed the couple, told them to be fruitful and multiply, and gave them dominion over all of their living things. Right after they had taken a bite from the apple, they had found out that they were naked. And before, they never knew they were naked till they took a bite out of the apple. So Jesus wasn't happy that they had taken a bite out of the apple. And now they know that they're naked and just want to hide from Jesus and from themselves. In chapter 6 to 9 in the book of Genesis in the Bible, the narrative, one of many flood myths found in human cultures, indicates that God intended to return the earth to its pre-creation state of water recharged by flooding the earth because of humanity's misdeeds, and then remake it using the microscope of Noah's Ark. The flood was no ordinary flood, but a reversal of creation. The narrative discusses the evil of mankind that moved God to destroy the world by the way of the flood, the preparation of the ark for certain animals, Noah and his family, and God's guaranteed for the continued existence of life under the promise that he would never send another flood. After the flood, Noah offered burnt offerings to God, who said, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart, evil from his youth, neither will I again smite any more everything as I have done. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. They were also told that fowls, land animals, and fishes would be afraid of them. Furthermore, as well as green plants, every moving thing would be their food, with the exception that the blood was not to be eaten. Man's lifeblood would be required from the beast and from man. A rainbow called my bow was given as the sign of a covenant between me and you and every living creature that is with you. Perpetual generations called the Noahic covenant of the rainbow covenant. Noah died 350 years ago after the flood at the age of 1950, the last of the extremely long-lived. The maximum human lifespan has depicted by the Bible diminishes thereafter from almost 1,000 years to the 120 years of Moses. Rain fell for 40 days and nights. Waters flooded the earth 150 days. Everything was locked out. Noah had waited about 8 more months and waited for the surface of the earth to dry out. After that, Noah had built an altar. The narrative in Genesis revolves around the themes of poetry and land. Abraham is called by God to leave the house of his father Terah and settle in land originally given to Canaan, but which God now promises to Abraham and his progeny. Various candidates are put forward who might inherit the land after Abraham, and while promises are made to Ishmael about founding a great nation, Isaac, Abraham's son by his half-sister Sarah, inherits God's promises to Abraham. Abraham purchased a tomb to Hebron to be Sarah's grave, thus establishing his right to the land, and in the second generation, her Isaac is married to a woman from his own kind, thus ruling the Canaanites out of any inheritance. Abraham later marries Keturah and has 6 more sons, but on his death, when he is buried beside Sarah, it is Isaac who receives all Abraham's good, while the other son receives only gifts. The Abraham story cannot be definitely related to any specific time, and it is widely agreed that the patriarchal age, along with the Exodus and the period of the Judges, is a late literary construct that does not relate to any period in actual history. A common hypothesis among scholars is that it was composed in the early Persian period as a result of tensions between Jewish landowners who had stayed in Judah during the Babylonian captivity and traced their rights to the land through their father Abraham and the returning exiles who. According to the book of Exodus, Moses was born in a time when his people, the Israelites, and enslaved minority were increasing in numbers, and the Egyptian pharaoh was worried that they might ally themselves with Egyptian enemies. Moses' Hebrew mother secretly hid him when the pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys to be killed in order to reduce the population of the Israelites. Through the pharaoh's daughter, the child was adopted as a foundling from the Nile River and grew up with the Egyptian royal family. After killing an Egyptian slave master, Moses fled across the Red Sea to Midian, where he encountered the angel of the Lord speaking to him from within a burning bush on Mount Horeb. God sent Moses back to Egypt to demand the release of the Israelites from slavery. Moses said that he could not speak, so God allowed Aaron, his brother, to become his spokesperson after the 10 plagues. Moses led the exodus of the Israelites out of Egypt and across the Red Sea. after which they based themselves at Mount Sinai, where Moses received the Ten Commandments. After 40 years of wandering in the desert, Moses died within sight of Promised Land on Mount Nebo. The name of Moses belongs to first millennium Egyptian. The biblical account of Moses' birth provides him with a folk of etymology to explain the ostensible meaning of his name. He is said to have received it from the Pharaoh's daughter, who became her son. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. This explanation links it to a verb meaning to draw out, which makes the Pharaoh's daughter declaration a play on words. The princess made a grammatical mistake, which is prophetic of his future role in the legend as someone who will draw the people of Israel out of Egypt through the waters of the Red Sea. Several etymologies have been proposed, and Egyptian root child off has been considered as a possible arguably, as for example in Egyptian names like Thutmoses, Thakirhim, and Ramses, with the god's name omitted. Abraham, based on the spelling given in the Tanakh, argues that it combines water or seed and pond expanse of water, thus yielding the sense of child of the Nile. Moses delivered the laws of God to Israel, instituted the priesthood under the sons of Moses' brother Aaron, and destroyed those Israelites who fell away from his worship in his final act at Sinai. God gave Moses instructions for the tabernacle, the mobile shrine by which he would travel with Israel to the Promised Land. In the biblical narrative, David is a young shepherd who first gains fame as a musician, and later by killing Goliath, he becomes a favorite of King Saul and a close friend of Saul's son Jonathan. Worried that David is trying to take his throne, Saul turns on David after Saul and Jonathan are killed in battle. David is anointed as king. David conquers Jerusalem, taking to the Ark of Covenant into the city, and establishing the kingdom founded by Saul. As king, David commits adultery with Bathsheba, leading him to arrange the death of her husband, Uriah the Hittite. Because of this sin, God denies David the opportunity to build the temple, and his son Absalom tries to overthrow him. David flees Jerusalem during rebellion, but after Absalom's death, he returns to the city to rule Israel. Before his peaceful death, he chooses his son Solomon as successor. He is honored. The birth of Jesus is celebrated annually on December 25th. His crucifix is honored by Good Friday, and his resurrection is celebrated on Easter. The widely used calendar ERA AD from the Latin Anno Domini and the equivalent alternative CE are based on the approximate birth date of Jesus. Christians of the time designated Jesus as the Christ because they believed him to be the Messiah, whose arrival is prophesied in the Hebrew Bible and the Old Testament. In post-biblical usage, Christ became viewed as a name, one of the part of Jesus Christ. The term Christian, meaning a follower of Christ, has been in use since the 1st century. Some early Christian groups had separate descriptions of the life and teachings of Jesus that are not included in the New Testament. These include the Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Peter, and Gospel of Judas. Most scholars conclude that these are written much later, and these are reliable accounts because they are canonical Gospels. Jesus, who is the way, the truth, and the life, must be the center, the centuria, and the model of our daily lives. This is what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. Had Jesus of Nazareth been a Roman or Greek, certainly his contemporaries would have left behind statues in his honor. However, because the Jews had a strict understanding of adultery, their interpretation of the Mosaic law did not allow them to make any images whatsoever of any human person. It would have been interesting if we had been left something that would illustrate the physical attributes of the Lord. He walked many miles under the blazing Middle Eastern sun in order to preach the kingdom of God. He slept many nights under the stars, and he spent much of that time in the bliss of silent prayer. He found little time to eat because of the multitudes seeking his healing touch, and yet when he did find time to rest, he slept